Today we explore a place I've always wanted to visit, a legend in American mental asylum history that will soon be a memory. Join us in this two-part exploration as we dissect its legacy and its ruins. Our story starts during the mid-1800s when there was a new movement leading to the development of what would be known as the Kirkbride Plan building. This style of architecture was developed by Thomas Kirkbride and based on his theories of healing, which focused on exposure to light and fresh air within monumental, self-contained complexes for patients. These buildings were known for a sprawling bat-like structure with two long wings, each self-contained, with all needed rooms such as parlors, kitchens, infirmaries, and bathrooms. The central area was reserved for administration and reception. The first such Kirkbride was built in 1848 as Trenton State Hospital. In 1843, a local non-Kirkbride hospital was built, but by 1866, after the Civil War, it had become overcrowded. A commission was created that set aside 300 acres for use, and British architect Frederick Clark Withers was paid to design and implement the new Kirkbride complex there. Joining him were Calvert Vaux and Frederick Law Olmsted, who designed the massive landscaping projects. The original plan was to create a two-wing Kirkbride with room for 300 patients per wing, both male to the south and female to the north. $1 million was allotted and a special dock and quarry created for materials. The project soon ballooned in costs. In October 1871, the first 40 patients moved into the administration building as construction continued on the wings. Already over budget, attempts were made to stop the completion of the structure, and in the end, the female wing was much decreased in size due to the low number of female patients. In 1895, funds ran out after many extensions under the first superintendent, Dr. Cleveland, who was sacked for mismanagement and the costly building of a variety of support structures like a firehouse, repair shop, carpentry shop, church, trolley, post office, and nursing school. Among the population, 60% of patients were employed in the various shops on site and kept busy with leisure activities inside the huge complex. There was a barber, beautician, regular schedule of meals, work, and sleep time for each patient. By 1887, early methods of treatment were being abandoned, such as the use of the Utica crib. An adult restraining bed, which locked a patient down inside of it, was filled with straw and used to control patients who would not sleep or stay still. The Rush tranquilizing chair was also in early use and was designed to increase blood flow to the head by holding it in an upright position with a screen covering the face. The chair had a toilet built into it for long sitting sessions. As these fell out of use, however, other practices continued, such as electroshock, straitjackets, and lobotomies. More commonly, patients were controlled by drugs like bromide, chloral hydrate, and paraldehyde. Others were held with restraining sheets, seclusion rooms, or were wrapped in wet sheets known as wet packs. The second superintendent, starting in 1893, was Dr. Pilgrim, who began field day events, completed a new morgue, lab, greenhouses, staff housing, a new railroad line, superintendent's house, blacksmith, garage, chapel, and even a library. Dr. Pilgrim was well known for his new approaches to therapy, including his tub therapy, an extreme hydrotherapy involving a patient being held in a canvas hammock in a warm tub with a rubber pillow and being kept there for at least a day, being fed breakfast, lunch, and dinner in the tub. Some patients were kept in these tubs for as much as a month straight. In the early 1900s, he opened a library, dairy, farms, and other structures, including an 80-bed hospital. In 1914, scarlet fever swept through the complex, killing many. In 1918, Dr. Ryan became the third superintendent of the hospital, inheriting not just the imposing structure on the hilltop built to hold some 600 patients, but the whole complex. By 1920, this had expanded to 900 acres with countless buildings the size of a whole village that was 25% overcrowded with around 3,500 patients. The main building would burn 10 tons of coal daily at its nearby plant to keep the facilities running. In 1923, Dr. Ryan would open a tuberculosis hospital to cope with the disease spreading among the patients. Dr. Ryan died on site after a short term, suffering a paralysis episode, and was replaced by Dr. Cheney, who created a number of new shops and nurse housing units. In 1932, Cheney's successor, Dr. Folsom, opened a large, new connected, 3-building complex named after Dr. Ryan. The new complex was designed to house the most violent residents and also the criminally insane patients within one female wing of 200 and one male wing of 200 beds. New psychiatric aides were added to the staff for these patients, and the complex opened, alleviating the pressure of overcrowding. After only a decade, in 1945, under the new superintendent Dr. Ross, the hall was embroiled in an incident that led to the involvement of the First Lady of the United States. Dr. Ross had discovered a pervasive culture of abuse at the hall, which led to the firing and charging of 4 staff members. Practices had included physical beatings, tapping of patients' genitals with keys, and other sadistic abuses. In the end, Eleanor Roosevelt was to visit and write an editorial in support of the remaining staff members, going against the findings of Dr. Ross, who left soon afterwards. Over the years following the event, the building slowly fell out of use and the hospital closed in 2003. It is here, in this hall, that our exploration begins as we take you through the decayed ward for the violent and criminally insane and find what was left behind. I'd like to take a moment to introduce our exploring crew: Thinkmaker, our videographer, myself, Desertify Urbex, writer, narrator, and photographer, and our guests joining us at the ward today, Free Spirit and Dark Sparkle. Upon entering, we are met by dark passages flooded with foot-deep frozen water. The ice is slippery and cracks beneath us as we make our way inside. These basements held a print shop, laundry, storage, kitchens, and training rooms. We decide to avoid the side rooms as they are flooded. This door was once ornate, but has been smashed by vandals. Inside the inner courtyard, small trees grow, and above the door, a bird's nest sits on the frame. We ascend to the first level, where rec rooms, offices, dorms, therapy rooms, a cafeteria, and kitchens resided. Past the landing, the hallway is a horror show. Fallen tiles, metal dropped ceiling supports, lights and pipes hang everywhere.
That's disgusting. Very wet. Very wet.
In a drier hallway, screens protect the windows, and in the corner, a discarded backpack. Outside, one can see the U-shape of the East Ward, replicated again further along the building to the west, with a main administrative building in the middle. The newest hospital looms overhead in the distance. The heavy door and mesh screen window indicate the need to keep people in. The room appears to possibly be an activity area for the disturbed patient population. An oxygen tank cart sits alone on the floor. Through the dark window is an enclosed area, seemingly an observation point to watch patients from. The wind howls outside and down the empty halls.
Nobody wants to do that. They're talking my balls.
Charted out on the board are the last activities to be held here on its final days open.
Computer organization. There's extra confusing tags.
A few rare quality tags adorn this room. Rotten wood slats are all that lie underfoot in this strange passage between steam pipes.
The table.
Maybe not printed.
It's gotta be one.
Solid right there.
Yeah, medieval. Yeah, look at a rope. Maybe a tattoo.
The desk area and phone seem to suggest the room, again, was for observation of patients. There's some kind of understanding that says no abandoned site, if empty long enough, can escape this kind of graffiti being on every surface. They've almost become a code standing for abandoned places.
Coffee. No more.
Yeah, lovely.
Patients were always up to often elaborate and diabolical plans that sometimes in the end were simply humorous, like the patient who would sneak out to work as a bartender every day, another who tricked the city council into using his engineering plans, and a man who posed as a rich millionaire's daughter in local personals to lure in suitors by mail. However, in these dark rooms, it's hard not to let the mind wander to the darkest stories of the most infamous patients, like serial killer Frederick Moores, who admitted to the murder of 8 elderly residents of a nursing home. Moores used chloroform to put people out of their misery. He said it's like putting a baby to sleep. It frees them from all pain. He was committed to the hospital for homicidal hallucinations and megalomania. While about to be deported, he escaped in 1916 and was never found. A skeleton discovered in the woods of Connecticut was later found with a bottle of poison, and many believe this to have been evidence of Moore's suicide. For many living in these wards once admitted they would never see the outside of the hospital again. Life could be brief here. Somewhere between 6,000 to 10,000 patients are buried in pauper burials in a nearby grounds which themselves kept no records. From opening in 1871 to 1881, the average death rate of patients was over 16% per year, but later dropped in the next following decades to around 11%, with TB and flu outbreaks among the population having spurred the creation of more treatment centers. Some of the patients, however, died in strange events of their own causing, like drownings, throat cuttings, self-stabbings or stranglings, or from swallowing knives and spoons, or jumping out of windows. Others would die under mysterious circumstances, like a man found starved to death, another found fatally hit by a car, and another who was found with their head crushed on the railroad tracks. Some patients were murdered by staff, or in some cases, beaten to death by other inmates with a handy shovel or chair arm, or had their eyes gouged out. Yet others died escaping by falling between train cars on the nearby rail line, self-inflicted gunshot wounds, or drowning. Staff would die as well from jumping out windows, having their heads crushed by patients, being burned to death by pipe steam, or in the case of the head chef, dying inside the freezer.
You want to go up in the cool stairs over there? There's cooler stairs.
What was the
Yeah. Yeah, keep in.
no fire escape?
Like that was probably safer.
No.
I think they're all concrete.
Yeah.
Very dirty. No smoke.
We head to the second floor, and here we reach the end of the exploration today. Join us next time as we explore the last declining decades of the hospital and a shocking murder, and narrowly avoid disaster.
Bye.
Subscribe and explore with us today.